Here's the story of how Israel built its nuclear arsenal. History time, kids.
Yeah.
Yay!
So we're talking about the other nuclear power in the United States. If you are against Middle Eastern countries having secret nuclear arsenals that they acquired through illicit means, congratulations, you're against both Iran and Israel. So since the 1960s, when they first got this whole program started, the Israeli nuclear program has abided by nuclear ambiguity. They do not confirm how many they have, where they're located, or even if they exist. Israel has never officially confirmed that it has a nuclear arsenal. It's just assumed that they do. Experts suggest that they have anywhere between 80 and 90, with some as high as like 300, although those are the extreme upper limits. But technically speaking, we have no idea how many they have. They're not party to nuclear non-proliferation treaties, and they are exempt from inspection by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which every other group that has nuclear energy and nuclear warheads can be inspected by this group.
That's what Kennedy was giving them a hard time about.
Yes. So the way it got started was there was a facility called the Dimona Nuclear Reactor, which has since been renamed to the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center, that they opened up disguised as a textile mill. And then when people said, hey, that's not a textile mill, they said, you're right, it's actually a metallurgical research facility. Hey, that's not actually what you're doing there. Okay, you're right, it's just a different kind of... They changed the kind of factory it was like 4 times before people finally said, hey, like you're enriching uranium. And then they said, all right, fine, it's like for nuclear energy. They're not actually doing, nuke building. It's just for research development.
Right.
Some inspectors go in. They give them a tour of fake buildings they built. They built fake walls over the elevators to show that, oh no, this is just a hallway. There's no way to get down to the reactor from here. They take them into fake control rooms with panels showing false readings on reactors that don't exist, video footage of things taken in places that you cannot get to. The whole smoke and mirrors routine to stop.
How do we know this?
This has all been disclosed since then. Like, this is a declassified satellite footage of it.
But who's reporting that they were being fooled by these people?
All the reports have come out afterwards. We can drop some links in the description when we're done here of, like, the Associated Press just broke it down. Like, this has been common knowledge since, like, the 60s.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to give a Trump citation, which is, I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. Like, these are actual, like, declassified documents and things they've admitted to freely of, like, yes, we freely acknowledge that we ran this op, but we weren't going to let the world know about their nuclear secrets. And honestly, yeah, I can't blame them.
Right.
If some foreign power comes in and, hey, let us inspect your nuclear arsenal. No, we're not going to let you do that. They initially said, it was a desalination facility, metallurgical research, textile mill, but they have, for decades now, been able to develop all of this completely secretly. They don't have to disclose anything. They don't have to communicate with anybody. The person who is most opposed to that, President John F. Kennedy. Brandon, you just commented on that a little bit.
Knew it all too well.
Yeah. He was aggressively agitating against allowing them to become a nuclear-armed power. Then his head gets blown off, and suddenly every subsequent president is totally on board with it.
Yep.
That's a leap. Come on.
I see it. I see the connection, Connor. Don't worry.
I see it.
I'm not saying there's a connection. I'm just saying there was a policy change immediately after. And make of those facts whatever you will. But 1969 agreement, we have this photo here, between Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir and President Nixon. That is when the United States agreed that we would no longer put pressure on Israel to disclose their arsenal. They didn't have to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And in exchange, Israel would never disclose what they have and would never publicly conduct nuclear testing. So they've never detonated a nuke in any way we can prove for testing purposes. And the rest of us agreed to stop asking questions.
Wow.
The meeting where they agreed to that was attended by multiple White House aides. It was top secret in 1969. One of the people in attendance was Henry Kissinger.
Oh.
Brandon, would you give us a little breakdown of who Henry Kissinger was and what he did?
Oh, he's a Committee of 300 guy. He started off like in the military during World War II time, and basically schmoozed all the right people. He was a really smart guy, and he's kind of like a Dick Cheney guy, where You just play the game. You're all in. You keep secrets. You keep your mouth shut when you're supposed to, and then the world becomes your oyster at some point when you prove that you could be trusted by enough people. So he was like the foreign policy wizard. You know, they like he's like in the Secretary of State Hall of Fame. He was Secretary of State and National Security Advisor at the same time, so had a whole lot of power. And he's the one who kind of shuffled us into bringing China into the global economy.
That's a great story.
That whole the ping pong thing.
And him flying.
And you know he was voted the most, the sexiest man in the world at one point.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at most available photos of him.
He's not good looking.
Yeah, he should not have carried that title.
But he's like he said power is an aphrodisiac all on its own or something.
I mean, he may have had a point, because if he's able to negotiate backroom deals like that,
He had some game.
yeah, definitely able to schmooze some people. A lot of what was known about Israel's nuclear arsenal came from a whistleblower in 1986 named Mordecai Vanunu, who used to work at the facility, took a bunch of pictures, then leaked them to the British press. The Mossad lured him to Rome, kidnapped him, and imprisoned him for 18 years.
Nice.
He then lived the rest of his life in Israel, never allowed to speak to someone not from Israel.
Wow.
Jeez.
Very hostile.
Oh my gosh.
But the question that people have to ask is, how did Israel acquire all the materials to build its nuclear weapons?
Yep.
And some of it came from France, who they had an agreement with to help build that secret facility in the first place. In the 80s and 90s, they got really close with South Africa. Under the apartheid government, they were able to exchange yellow cake uranium for some, technological secrets and stuff. But it seems like the bulk of it came from an event called the Apollo Affair, or the NUMEC Affair, if we can throw this up. Between 1957 and 1968, nearly 300 pounds of highly enriched uranium went missing from the Nuclear Materials and Equipment Corporation in Apollo, Pennsylvania. Here we have the headquarters of this building, as well as the guy who founded the company, Dr. Zalman Shapiro. This guy was not only a former Manhattan Project scientist, but he was also a diehard Zionist who was devoted to supporting Israel at all times.
I'll do it.
They tried to figure out where 300 pounds of enriched uranium went. Shapiro said it was just lost because of shoddy bookkeeping. Like, oh, we forgot to carry a 1 in this year, and then this year we recorded something twice, and it was all just shuffled around. Bureaucratic incompetence led to 300 pounds of enriched uranium disappearing. The U.S. intelligence agencies, almost from the start, believed that was untrue, and they believed Shapiro had personally transported that over to Israel.
Wow.
The FBI and the CIA investigated, but they came up with no concrete evidence and never decided to prosecute anybody, although they concluded with high confidence that Israel was currently in possession of the uranium. The uranium has never been found. Nobody knows what happened to it.
Wow.
But how do we know that this guy was involved in these things? Well, Zalman Shapiro had several secret meetings with this guy named Rafi Eton, who was one of Israel's most legendary and enigmatic intelligence figures. He joined Shin Bet, which was the original Israeli intelligence service, then went on to become a founding member of the Mossad. So the guy who founded the Mossad traveled to the United States and met with Zalman Shapiro at the headquarters of NUMEC right before all this uranium went missing. It is believed that during that time, they engineered the handoffs. And part of how we know that Rafi Eton was a high-level Mossad spy is because of an incident called the Jonathan Pollard Affair in the 1980s, when Eton was the point of contact for a guy named Jonathan Pollard, who is a U.S. naval intelligence analyst who was recruited to hand over thousands upon thousands of classified documents to Israel regarding American nuclear secrets, things going on in Pakistan and the Middle East, tens of thousands of pages of sensitive materials. Pollard was caught and arrested in 1985. Eton fled to Israel and was never extradited. And Pollard was imprisoned, or sentenced to life in prison, served 30 years, and was then paroled in 2015.
Oh, wow.
He went to Israel and was immediately granted citizenship and a hero's welcome by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
hero's
welcome.
If we show this next picture on the following
How old
slide.
is he right now?
He's pretty old.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who's, like I said, he spent 30 years in prison.
Right.
But he was met by Netanyahu received warmly and has since made many public statements critical of the U.S. intelligence community and has asserted his undying loyalty to Israel.
Wow.
So, why we want to bring this up is that nuclear power in the Middle East has become this very hot-button issue right now. We just conducted a bunch of strikes on Iran to prevent them from developing bombs, and yet our closest ally in the region got their own nuclear arsenal, which they've never confirmed they have, by the way. They got that the same way they get a bunch of other stuff, which is by taking it from us whether we want them to or not. So, now that the history lesson is over, guys, your thoughts. And Amy, I'm dying to know what the chat is saying about this, if you can tell me after Brandon goes.
Well, I ran a poll. I said, should Israel have a nuclear weapon? Only 31% of the chat said yes. 69%, as of right now, have said no. They're definitely finding this super informative. If you guys have specific questions, I'm going to be looking at the chat. Go ahead and send them through. But yeah, I mean, as soon as all of this started coming out, I mean, and I'm pretty uneducated, but I saw that side-by-side chart of Israel versus Iran and like, are they in the non-proliferation treaty? Yes, no. Iran is the one that said yes. Israel is the one that said no. Do they submit to inspections? Yes, no. Iran is the one who said yes. Israel's the one who said no. If anybody is like, should be more closely monitored, shouldn't it be the ones who have the weapons, who aren't submitting to any type of inspections, who want this to be secretive and concealed? That's my
that's pretty logical thing to say.
What I hate though, I hate this. I hate that verbalizing that will get you labeled an anti-Semite when it's like I would apply that standard to every other country in this entire world. There needs to be some level of accountability when you're literally talking about weapons of mass destruction. I don't know if it's anything legitimate or anything we can put credence in, but I saw a lot of people sharing something about the Samson option as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to bring that up.
Is it too spicy to talk about?
No, I was really gonna.
Brandon, do you want to take that one, or I've already jumped on the grenade this episode?
Yeah, no. So apparently there's this agreement. It's technically unofficial, but they say that if like all else failed and things looked like they were going downhill for, is it just Israel or is it any country? I think it's just Israel, right? So they say that they would basically like set off nukes, blowing up everybody, including themselves, if it looked like they were like basically getting overthrown.
Yeah. It's a reference to the story of Samson from the Bible, who has been captured and blinded by the Philistines, and he's at the end of his life. There's nothing he can do, but he's been given super strength from God. So he's chained up in a temple. What he does, he knocks over the pillars, killing everyone in it along with himself. The Samson Option, books have been written about this. Like Brandon said, it exists in kind of the shadowy recesses of government policy. It's never been enacted, but it's been proposed and discussed extensively.
Right.
That if Israel loses a war, it's about to be destroyed, they deploy their nuclear arsenal against not only everyone attacking them, but everyone they think should have helped.
Right.
So let's just blow up the entire Middle East. We have a couple targets in Europe and the United States as well. And there have been people quoted as saying, like, better a nuclear winter than a world without Israel and other things of that nature.
That's a little extreme.
You'd think.
Just a little bit, Brandon. Jeez.
But again, that's based on a nuclear arsenal that they've never actually confirmed they have.
Yeah.
So if you really want to get conspiratorial about it, Israel has no nukes. They made the whole thing up, and it's just all posturing and bluffing of like, yeah, we definitely in there. There's a bunch of big scary nukes. Like, have you ever actually gotten into the theory that nukes aren't real?
I've heard it
At
before.
all? Like point blank period?
Nuclear weapons either.
What about Hiroshima?
That wasn't technically a nuke.
That we detonated giant conventional explosives. Because think about what they tell you.
Those are atom bombs.
Yeah.
A little bit different than
Yeah.
nukes.
Every time a nuclear warhead goes off, it's like, oh, there's radiation that'll last thousands of years. There's a radiation leak in Chernobyl. The area is still not inhabitable after all this time, and it won't be for, like a couple centuries still? Why were people able to go back and start cleaning up and living in Hiroshima, like, a week later?
And why did tourists
It was
go
a
to...
week later? I didn't know that.
Within a very short amount of time.
Okay, so what are the
there's
long-term
no-
effects? Have there been a bunch of kids born with deformities and things of this nature in
Chernobyl,
Hiroshima?
yes. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there's no record of, mass cases of cancer and deformities and other radiation-related illnesses.
Well, that's
because,
pretty
like Brandon
frickin'
said,
interesting.
they're A-bombs, not nuclear warheads. A little bit different. But what they've been pushing for, as they continue to develop these, allegedly, is they want more explosions, less radiation. They want them to be more devastating with less radioactivity over time.
Gotcha. We did have a question here. Any idea where the nuclear material that came out of the USSR went to? Ask Bob Mueller and Hillary Clinton and the Podestos, etc. $8 million a quarter pounder.
Is that a paid chat?
Yeah.
So there was nuclear material that left the Soviet Union. I'm not familiar with that
I'm
one.
not familiar with this.
Well,
And
I'd imagine if it was leaving the Soviet Union, it went to all the failed Soviet states to be broken up into arsenals that are probably still hidden there now.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.